Have you ever heard a sound so powerful it could change the course of history? On the night of April 26, 1986, a quiet Ukrainian town went to sleep and woke up to the worst nuclear disaster the world had ever seen. A blinding flash lit up the sky, a shockwave shattered the windows of Pripyat, and within seconds, the heart of a nuclear reactor tore itself apart. This wasn't war. This wasn't terrorism. This was a mistake. A single moment of human error that poisoned the air, the land, and thousands of lives. This is the story of Chernobyl, the explosion that changed the world forever. It all began at reactor number 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, about 80 miles north of Kiev. That night, engineers were running a routine safety test, a test that should have made the plant safer. But under pressure from superiors and falling behind schedule, they ignored crucial safety procedures. At 1:23 a.m., the reactor's unstable core reached its critical limit. Moments later, the control rods jammed halfway, trapping unimaginable heat inside. And then, an explosion so massive it lifted a 1,000-ton steel lid straight into the air. The building shook like an earthquake. The reactor core was exposed, glowing like the heart of a dying star. Firefighters from the nearby town of Pripyat were the first to arrive. They saw bright blue flames dancing on the roof and thought it was just an electrical fire. They didn't know that the light wasn't ordinary fire, it was ionized radiation. They climbed onto the roof without protective gear, their boots melting beneath them as they sprayed water on what they thought were flames, but were actually radioactive graphite chunks burning at over 2,000 degrees Celsius. One firefighter, Vasily Ignatenko, would later tell his wife, "My skin is burning inside my suit." He died 2 weeks later. By dawn, the entire sky over Pripyat glowed a strange, eerie purple. Residents watched from their balconies, with children pointing, thinking it was something beautiful. They didn't know they were breathing poison. No evacuation orders were given. The Soviet government kept silent, and for 36 hours, 50,000 people lived in one of the most radioactive zones on Earth, completely unaware. Inside the plant, chaos reigned. Engineers walked through smoke-filled corridors as radiation meters screamed and then died. The explosion had blown radioactive fuel into the open air, releasing more radiation than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Doctors in nearby hospitals were overwhelmed. Patients came in with skin burns that wouldn't heal, uncontrollable vomiting, dizziness, and a metallic taste in their mouths, the early signs of acute radiation syndrome. As the truth began to spread, the Soviet Union scrambled to hide it. But soon, Swedish scientists detected radioactive particles in their airspace, hundreds of miles away. The secret was out. The world now knew something unimaginable had happened in the heart of the USSR, and by then, it was already too late. When the explosion ripped through reactor number 4, the Soviet government had one instinct: silence. In the early hours of April 26th, as radioactive clouds spread across Ukraine and Belarus, Moscow issued no warnings. The official report said only, "A small fire at a nuclear plant. Everything is under control," but everything was falling apart. On April 27th, a full 36 hours after the explosion, the people of Pripyat were finally ordered to evacuate. Buses lined the streets for miles as families grabbed what little they could carry. Authorities told them they'd be gone for just 3 days. Most of them never returned. Their homes, their pets, their lives, all left behind in a city that would never breathe again. Today, Pripyat stands frozen in time, a ghost city filled with abandoned toys, school books, and the echo of laughter that once filled its playgrounds. But while the world began to panic, thousands of men and women were sent into Chernobyl, not to flee, but to fight. They were called liquidators. Soldiers, firefighters, miners, ordinary people ordered to do the impossible, contain the invisible death spreading across the land. They shoveled radioactive debris with their bare hands, built concrete walls around the burning reactor, and even dug tunnels beneath it to stop molten uranium from melting into the groundwater. Some worked for just minutes before collapsing. Others died within weeks. Their names were never known to most of the world, but without them, half of Europe might have become uninhabitable. Meanwhile, in Moscow, officials fought to control the narrative. Scientists who spoke out were silenced, and journalists were warned not to publish the truth. The Soviet Union feared not just radiation, but embarrassment. It took weeks before the Kremlin finally admitted that a nuclear disaster had occurred. By then, radiation had reached Sweden, Finland, and even the UK. The world held its breath, watching the invisible enemy drift across borders. In the following months, over 600,000 people worked on the cleanup. They built a massive concrete shell, the Chernobyl sarcophagus, to seal the reactor's deadly remains. It was meant to last 30 years. It barely survived 20. Today, a new, massive steel dome covers it, a monument not just to disaster, but to human courage and denial alike. In the years that followed, thousands developed cancer, children were born with deformities, and entire regions were abandoned. But perhaps the most haunting truth is how long it took the world to learn from it. Chernobyl wasn't just a technical failure. It was a failure of truth, a tragedy born from arrogance, secrecy, and fear. Today, the word Chernobyl is more than a place. It's a warning, a reminder that the cost of silence can echo for generations. And yet, amidst the ruin, there were heroes, men and women who stood in the face of death to protect others. They didn't ask for glory. They didn't ask for forgiveness. They simply did what needed to be done. This was the Chernobyl disaster, a story of fire, lies, and the human spirit's struggle to rise above both. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more real stories that remind us how fragile and powerful humanity can be.